through the book of Mark. He likes to go quick. He even likes to use this certain Greek word that he uses more than any other writer in the New Testament. Eutheos, immediately, quickly, as soon as. That's how it's translated, depending on the sentence structure, but it has this idea of moving very fast. And he wants to go very quickly through all the details, focus in on the power of Jesus, but run real fast. He does not use the scholarly language like Paul. Now, for us, it's still Greek, and it's still a challenge, it still takes work. But in the Greek-speaking world, Mark is one that uses simpler language. He uses simpler form of words. He's not going to give all these crazy grammatical structures that Paul uses, and you have to go go the extra mile to understand it. Mark is really straightforward and to the point. But despite that, it is still a masterful letter. As simple as he puts it, he still puts it in a way that does take work for us. And through it, we find these different themes. That Jesus is a servant. And if you wanted to focus on how he's a servant, you can look at all these passages in Mark that really shows that. But then if you want to focus on the power of Jesus, Mark gives that too, that he is a very powerful king. And he's going very fast, and then he will elaborate on the miracle. Then he'll go really fast and elaborate on the miracle, and you really see the power that Jesus has. But also, if you're paying close attention to the way Mark is writing, you will also notice as we travel through that he is presenting Jesus Christ as this great commander, this great ruler over the armies. And we're going to see this more as we travel, and he's going to be given different details that really help out with that thing. All of that I just said would have appealed to the Roman world. Roman citizens, those who had a Roman mindset, they would be looking for such an individual. That's why they looked at Caesar as someone great. This is who they were looking for. They were looking for someone who was a perfect ruler, who had great power, had great armies, but also was one that wanted to serve the people. This is who they're looking for. Well, Mark is going to zoom in on those different details so that it would capture the attention of those with a Roman mindset. They needed to understand that Jesus is sovereign. He is God's Son, and he is a sovereign. That meaning he's one that rules. And thus far, Mark has shown us how powerful Jesus is, and he will continue to do this. And we also learn that Jesus has a kingdom, and he rules as a king. And we must be attentive to his words. Jesus is God's Son. That's another thing that comes out in the book of Mark. He is the Son of God. And we'll even see that in this section as well. But God's Son has enemies and followers. For any political person in power, there will be enemies and there will be followers. It's true for any king. It is the same for Jesus Christ. It's the same for Jesus. Look at verse 6. There in chapter 3, verse 6. There it says, then the Pharisees went out and, there's that word, immediately plotted with the Herodians against him, how they might destroy him. Immediately. They wanted to do this quickly. They came together. Now that word plotted, your translation, your version may say counsel, because that is how the Greek word is defined in lexicons or Greek dictionaries. And so you have this formal meeting quickly put together with the governmental leaders, the Herodians. They had a political council meeting very quick, and they wanted to know, how are we going to destroy Jesus? Now, I know that there's all this talk about the Greek language, but Mark, he uses a certain word. Now, there is a word for destroy. He could have used that one. He uses this word to emphasize. It's two words put together. One that means away, and another which means destroy. Both have the same idea, but he puts them together to make one word. And maybe your version captures that by saying utterly destroyed. And that's what he's trying to convey. He's trying to show, look, they not only got together quickly, they not only got together with the governmental leaders, and they were not just talking about how to kill him, they were trying to figure out what is the worst way to kill him. They wanted to, we need to get rid of him, but we need to get rid of him in a way where it's embarrassing to him. What's the worst way that we can do this? What are they so mad about? They're mad that Jesus healed people. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine seeing Jesus heal a man? He just healed a man with a withered hand, and it set them off. How dare he? Do people act this way today? The answer is yes. You know, in a protest, I actually saw a man with a sign that he was holding up, and it said on there with big bold letters, "If Jesus returns, we'll crucify him again." Now, did you get little chills? Can you imagine that? That people still have this idea that if he were to come again, we'll do it again. Some atheist societies today have council meetings, formal meetings. Some of them even talk with political leaders. And how are we going to get Christianity out of here? They're so offended by it. Why is this important to bring up? Because afterwards, Jesus, who knows all things, kept on going. Look at verse 7. But Jesus withdrew with his disciples to the sea, and a great multitude from Galilee followed him, and from Judea, and Jerusalem, and Idumea, and beyond the Jordan. And those from Tyre and Sidon, a great multitude, when they heard how many things he was doing, came to him. And so he told his disciples that a small boat should be kept ready for him because of the multitude, lest they should crush him. For he healed many, so that as many as had afflictions pressed about him to touch him. And the unclean spirits, whenever they saw him, fell down before him and cried out, saying, "You are the Son of God." There's that one of those themes he brings out. But he sternly warned them that they should not make him known. That was Jesus. That was his work. That was for him to do. It should be motivation, knowing that, yes, we do have enemies out there, people who are trying to take Christianity out of America. But maybe this hits closer to home for some of you. Maybe you have a family member against you. Maybe you have family members against you. Maybe you have coworkers against you. Do you have people in your life who give you a hard time for living the good Christian life? And what are they so mad about? That you're helping people? That you're trying to help people come to the great position to cure spiritual illnesses? Oh man, how could they be doing that? And we're thinking, what is so wrong with this? I mean, atheists, well, they say, well, all there is this life, and when you're dead, that's it. Which we would kindly say, then what's the problem? What's the problem with us helping souls get to heaven if nothing matters anyway? But see, what are they really offended by? The same thing the Herodians and the Pharisees and scribes were offended by. They weren't really offended by the healings. It was that they were proven wrong. That's what it came down to. They were proven wrong. And that's what people get upset about. But whenever things like that happen, what are we going to do? We're going to be like Jesus. We're going to keep on going. We're going to keep trying to find those who want to be healed because they're out there. Jesus could have said, you know what? They're going to act like that. Forget it. I'm out of here. But he didn't. He said, I'm going to go somewhere else then. And because over there's some people who want it. Verses 10 through 12, Jesus is known by the spiritual enemies, the demons, the unclean spirits. How sad is it that the demons believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and yet the Pharisees didn't? I mean, how low could a person go? The same sad story is found today. It has not changed for Satan and his demons. They still know that he's the Son of God, and yet people today do not believe that. And this is what James 2 talks about, right? Where he talks about the demon. Even the demons believe, and they tremble. But what does it do for them? Nothing. Now, does that mean that belief is out? No, you have to believe. But you see, belief is not enough. We have to believe and obey. But then someone say, well, didn't the demons obey? Because Jesus told them, well, don't speak. And they didn't speak. They did it. Come out of the man. They came out. They obeyed. But you see, even that was not enough. Because when they obeyed, it wasn't for the same reasons that we should obey. They obeyed because, well, they trembled, James says. They trembled, and they had no choice. Jesus had more power, and he forced them out. But in the end, the demons were not on Jesus' side. They didn't say, well, we're going to come out so that we can show everybody, so that we can help Jesus in his plan. That's not what they did. They didn't come out with a changed mind. You know what? I think we should help Jesus. We need to change our ways. That's not what they did. They went out, and then, well, they're just going to go find another way to go against Jesus. And so what does this teach us? Even more. You have to believe, yes. You have to obey, yes. But you have to do it in a way that's sincere. You have to do it in a way where you want to help in the cause of Christ. That's not how the demons worked. But through this, we see that Jesus is a powerful king. He is powerful, more powerful than the physical ailments out there, and more powerful than the spiritual, the world, the unclean spirits. But let's consider the next section. God's Son appointed kingdom leaders. In chapter 3, verse 13, and he went up to the mountain and called to him those who he himself wanted. And they came to him. Then he appointed 12, that they might be with him, that he might send them out to preach, and to have power to heal sicknesses and cast out demons. Simon, to whom he gave the name Peter, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, the brother of James, to whom he gave the name Boanerges, that the sons of thunder, that's what it meant. Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, the son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanite, and Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him, and they went into a house. Jesus is like the ultimate commander-in-chief, gathering up his generals on the mountain. And you notice in verse 13, there's this word, himself. Now, Mark could have said, he wanted. He called to him those he wanted. But he adds this word to really emphasize this is who he wanted. He himself wanted these men. In other words, he did not ask society, oh, who do you all want to be my apostles? What do you all think? Oh, you think Matthew? Okay. No, he says, this is who I want. I know exactly. I know them. He knows their character. That's why he names some of them. That's why he names 2 of them, sons of thunder, because he knows how they are. He renames Peter. So you see that he wants these 12. He wants 12, and he's going to say, look, this one, your name is this. And you 2, you're labeled this. He knows exactly who he wants. These are men who were instrumental in starting the kingdom. Acts chapter 2, Acts chapter 10, and other passages. These are apostles that became leaders in the kingdom. And they possessed the power that was by the will of Jesus. Any power that they possessed was because of Jesus. Jesus set it up so that these men could deliver the will of him. These are men who we need to follow, because they would turn around and they would write portions of the New Testament. They would also give this power to others, such as Mark, who would write these things down. And so in this way, we follow the will of what? God, through Jesus, the Holy Spirit, through these 12 men. Acts chapter 2, there in verse 42, what did they do after they were converted? They continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine, teachings. But where did it come from? It came from Jesus. God's Son is the stronger man over his kingdom. We come to verse 20. Then the multitude came together again so that they could not so much as eat bread. But when his own people heard about this, they went out to lay hold of him, where they said, he is out of his mind. In other words, you're not eating, Jesus. Go eat. We move on, verse 22. And the scribes who came down from Jerusalem said, he has Beelzebub, and by the ruler of demons he cast out demons. You see, the Pharisees were stuck here. They had to resort to a faulty line of reasoning. I mean, they're already thinking wrong. But they couldn't say, well, this miracle's a fake, because that would have made them look silly. They couldn't say, well, he's just like that street musician over there. He does magic tricks. It's just trickery. He got something up his sleeve. That's all it is. They couldn't say that. They had no room, because they were real events that altered the laws of physics. And people saw this. There is no way that someone can say a couple of words and then they're healed, and just touch someone and then all their infirmities go away. Nothing like that happens. Jesus could not pass for a trickster. And so the Pharisees Matthew says it's the Pharisees, Mark says it's the scribes, and so Pharisees and scribes working together, and they come together and they're like, what are we going to say? We can't say it's fake. Well, okay, we're going to take the place of the source out. So we're going to replace it with Beelzebub, basically Satan. Can you imagine seeing a miracle and then saying, well, yeah, that's from Satan? Now, Jesus could have said, when has Satan ever been mindful of those who are sick? He doesn't say that. He could have, but he goes into something greater. A greater logical argument. And what does he say? How can Satan be against Satan? And that's the passage that was read just a minute ago. He makes a logical argument. How can Satan put a demon in a person and then tell Jesus, can you go take that demon out so that I can look foolish? So that I can look weak? That wouldn't make any sense. And that's his point. And then he says, there in verse 27, no one can enter a strong man's house and plunder his goods unless he first binds the strong man, and then he will plunder his house. Who is the strong man here? It's Satan. Satan has power. He is a powerful being. He has strength. He is a strong man, so to speak. But what would it take for someone to thwart the work of this strong man? It would take a stronger man. And this is Jesus. Even though he doesn't say it, if they connect the dots, this is who he's talking about. No one can enter a strong man's house and plunder his good. He has to do what? He has to bind the strong man first. Well, that's going to require a stronger man. And then he will plunder his house. You see, this is what Jesus is doing. He's coming, so to speak, in the house of Satan, and he is showing that he is stronger than Satan, and because he's able to do that, then he's able to take out what belongs to him. Now, in this event, he's taken out the demons, but then he's also taken out the souls that are under slavery to Satan. The souls that were sinning, they're now converting. They're turning away from Satan's ways, and they're following the Son of God. And so in that way, he is stealing, not literally, he's using a visual here of some common event. It's not that Jesus is sinning while he's doing it, but he's given a visual. In order to take what is in Satan's house, he has to bind the strong man. Well, we also learn from other passages that Jesus has his own kingdom. Those who are coming out of that house are coming now into the house of God. And they are now in Jesus' kingdom. Well, in this passage, Jesus teaches that a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. So, it would make sense for people in the kingdom not to fight against each other. Divisions hurt the church. Now, in other places, we learn that the church will always exist somewhere in the earth. We have 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, we have 2 Peter chapter 3, and a host of others, that when Jesus comes, he is going to gather his kingdom. So there will be people here on earth. 1 Corinthians 15 talks about that. There's people on earth, and then there's going to be people down in the grave. Okay, and so he's going to gather both. That tells us all the way to the end of the world, there will always be Christians. But we also know that the church is separated by just geographical locations. So we have church, congregation, or group here in Lebanon. We have one in Conway. We have one in Springfield. We have some in Texas. We have some in Ohio. We have some in India. We have some in other countries. All around the world, we're just separated by our geographical settings. So you take each individual congregation, take us, we work together very closely here. This portion of the kingdom, it is vital to keep unity. If there is division, something will eventually give. Either it will get worse, or we'll get rid of it. We'll stop the division. It can only go both ways. It cannot just stay, well, we have a little bit of division, it's just going to stay like that. That's not how it works. Jesus teaches that a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. If a group like this, if there's any division, if there's just two members that are against each other, that's already too many. You remember Philippians chapter 4 when there was two women there in Philippi. Now he praises the congregation all over the place. You all are united, you have love, you have joy, fulfill my joy, keep it up. But these two women quit it, basically. That's basically what he's saying. Quit it. Get together. Why? Because, well, if there's only two, that's already too many. Because it can cause division and it can cause the group to fall. When we pull the lesson from Jesus' logical argument, it stands to reason that his kingdom ought to have unity. But also we have a host of verses that teach this. We have Ephesians chapter 4. We have Philippians chapter 4. 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 10. We all have to speak the same thing, have the same mind and the same judgment. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. We have to treat each other with the same kindness. Jesus wants us to follow the same law system. He wants us to treat each other with the same kindness. He wants us to work together for the same purposes. We have to have unity. It's a vital component for the life of the church. Now, there's much to say about the blasphemy of the Holy Spirit that it brings up. But guess what? We'll just have to come on Wednesdays. We'll talk about that there. God's Son, He desires obedient family members. God's Son desires obedient family members. You look at verse 31. Then his brothers and his mother came, and standing outside, they sent to him, calling him. And a multitude was sitting around him, and they said to him, Look, your mother and your brothers are outside seeking you. But he answered them, saying, Who is my mother or my brother? And he looked around in a circle at those who sat about him and said, Here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of God is my brother and my sister and my mother. Interesting, like he does not bring up the word father. Brings more discussion on that. But he focuses on different family members to prove this point. You see, Mary and his half-brothers were outside looking for him. So he uses this occasion to talk to those who are right there sitting at his feet, and they're all listening. Now, you notice there in verse number 32, they were sitting around him. So picture Jesus. Jesus has people that are all around him. And what does he do when he makes this point? He looked around in a circle. In other words, he went to everybody who was around him listening. Well, these are my family. These are my brother and my mother and my sisters. He's looking at all of them. all of those who took time to come to listen to him and take in and soak in his teachings, those are his family members. Now, that is not to say that this proves that Mary was unfaithful or something like that. He's just painting a picture here. He's using the occasion to set up a lesson. Okay, picture those on the outside and take that as a spiritual lesson. Those who are outside, not soaking in Jesus' teachings, who have no care of what he has to say, those are not my family members. But the ones that are here, listening to me, those are my family. And so in this kingdom, he wants order. He wants people to follow who he has set, the apostles, and the doctrine that they would bring. And he wants this kingdom to have order. He wants it to have unity. But he also wants us to be good, obedient family members. And it's going to take us to sit at the feet of Jesus and to soak in what he has to say and apply it. We must love our family. To turn it around to us, here's Jesus. He does love his mother. It is his mother. And while he's on the cross, he makes sure that she's going to be taken care of by John. And so he does love her. But he has a closer relationship with those in a spiritual level. Now, that's not to say that he didn't have that also with Mary. But again, he's just using this occasion to get that visual in their heads. Those on the outside who don't listen to me, they are not with me. The people who are here, that's my family, who are wanting to obey. Our spiritual connection with Jesus must be closer than any other family member. Now, the Bible does teach that we are to love our spouses, love our mother and our father and our siblings and so on. We have to love them, yes. But we must love Jesus more. Amen. We must love him more. And the way we show that is we sit at his feet. What does that mean? We're studying his words as we are right now. But it also involves us taking these words and applying it to our lives. Maybe there is one here who's realized, you know what? I haven't been united with my other brother, my spiritual brother. We've been at odds. Maybe you're sitting in a certain pew because, well, it's away from that other brother or sister. And nobody knows. Only you know that. Maybe it's time to make it right. Maybe you haven't been obedient. Maybe you realize, you know what? I have not been a good family member to Jesus. Or maybe you're here and you realize, after the Bible class and with this lesson, wait a minute, I'm not even in God's family. I have not been baptized. And I know that they have water there in the bricks. And yet, what am I going to do? What if I get in the car? What if I get in a wreck? You may not come back this evening. You may not come back next Sunday. Now is the time to follow the Son of God. He has proven his power, his authority, his might, and his care. Why would you not want to follow him? From this, we learn that if you're not following Jesus, there's only another being to follow, and that's Satan. You're either following Jesus or you're following Satan. You're either following his will and you're in his kingdom, or you're following the will of Jesus and you're in his kingdom. Which one are you going to choose? You can only have one or the other. If you're ready to make it right with God, or if you just need prayers, come let us know as we stand and sing.